My coming of age was when I was between 15 and 18 years of age in high school. And I grew up and went to high school in Oberlin, Ohio, where Oberlin College is. And Brucey and Carl can talk firsthand about what Oberlin was like in the 60s. It was a wonderful place to grow up, but it was also really tumultuous. And so in those 3 years, just after Martin Luther King was killed, my dad led a march from the church, his church on the square in Oberlin, to a Baptist church about 6 blocks away. And I was one of the people walking. And Carl, I assume you were too, but I don't remember. And we saw some of our classmates at this Baptist church. And this was, I think, the Sunday after Martin Luther King was assassinated. Shortly after that, somebody burned a cross on our front yard. It was a small cross. It was only about 3 or 4 feet tall. So we didn't take it very seriously, but nevertheless, somebody burned a cross on our front lawn. That fall, the fall of '68, I went and heard Rennie Davis, who was one of the Chicago Seven, speak, and I became anti-war, against the Vietnam War, because that speech had such an incredible impact on me. Early in '69, I went to Nixon's first inauguration, an anti-war demonstration that SDS organized. And there was an organizer by the name of Bill Hedges there who said he was going back to Lorain, Ohio to organize instead of the militant tactics. This was the beginning of the Weathermen that SDS, part of SDS, turned into. But really, for me, it was what Bill Hedges was talking about, organizing in a place like Lorain, Ohio. Monty Clayton, who was a classmate of mine, he and I spoke out against the Oberlin Indians mascot. We went to a high school class and said we thought that the Oberlin Indians mascot was racist and it should be changed. And they changed it about 30 years later. I think it's now the Oberlin Redhawks, if I'm not I think that's right. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. I went into my principal at my high school and quit high school in my senior year. They offered me a deal and said I could leave high school at 12 noon every day and organize a conference. So for the last 3 months of my high school senior year, that's what I did. I was a conscientious objector against the Vietnam War. I went to Woodstock. I worked on a kibbutz that was bordering on the Gaza Strip in the summer of 1970. I was 17 at the time. And my dad and my brother and I were walking down one of the main roads going towards the old city in Jerusalem. Palestinian came up to us and said, "What, he can't pay his taxes? Why doesn't he have any shoes on? Can't he pay his taxes?" This was a Palestinian man who knew that we were tourists and were going to ask us why he was paying the taxes that he couldn't afford. And besides Jerusalem, that summer I was in Athens, Venice, and Paris. And so during this time, I started doing what I called free drawing. And this is one example of that. I think I probably started with just a little figure eight, and more figure eights became the scene of a band. I did free drawing because it really freed me up to quit thinking and quit compulsive thinking. It really was a type of meditation And it at the time wasn't art. I didn't think I was doing art. I was just letting my mind go and doing whatever my imagination um, really came up with. That sense of freedom is important to me, but it's also a sense of freedom to what end? And my parents had a print of the Picasso masterpiece Guernica, which is about the bombing of the first civilian bombing, really massive civilian bombing during beginning of the Spanish Civil War. So this painting I did in the middle 70s, unfinished. It's about the death of Franco and the generations. Um, the woman, of course, the older woman remembering the Civil War in Spain. And so social justice has always been, a huge part of what I'm trying to both depict and think about and reflect on in my own life. So about 25 years ago, I started doing mixed media work. I take black and white, primarily black and white drawings, and then add found objects. And this I did. I was at the Cincinnati Art Museum and did a drawing of the side view of an Orisha mask, and then added the cloth to it later. And about 10 years ago, I started doing screen printing. I'd done, black and white work first, just drawings, even doodles, and then more serious drawing, and then mixed media, and then decided, partly because my family spent a lot of time in Mississippi, where my parents lived, and there was a regional artist named Walter Anderson, and his family turned a lot of his images into screen prints. And I thought, well, I could do that myself. And so I've done screen printing and sold screen prints for about the last 10 years. And this, of course, is Thelonious Monk. This is my path with racial justice. And at the top center, of course, is the brick church where my father was pastor in Oberlin, and the march just after Martin Luther King was killed. At the bottom is a portrait of my grandfather, who spent all of his life in Mississippi and New Orleans, Louisiana, and said that he personally knew the people who started jazz, and they're white. That and a whole lot of other lies that my grandfather Drackett would say made me think about how racism has been the fundamental problem in the United States, and continues to be, and now as Jim Crow 2 is kind of arising because of the administration in Washington, and much of the Republican Party. So this painting is as kind of an autobiographical map of my involvement with racial justice. Highlander Education and Resource Center is in the center where all the rocking chairs are. And Highlander was a critical part of the civil rights movement, where people would go to strategize. And Miles Horton, who was the director there, helped to begin citizenship schools that helped build the civil rights movement. This is a painting about Ginny. Ginny and I have been together for 43 years, and she has been my muse, my teacher. She's one of the best organizers I know. I have learned an incredible amount from working with and being with and loving Ginny. And she persists. And this was a hike that we did down to the Connecticut River. And for many, many years, she had a difficulty climbing hills. But she has worked through that, through all of what she's done for her health, and is now much more able to climb hills. So we climb back from the shore of the Connecticut River up on the bluffs. So this is, she persisted. This I did to remind me to be bold. In many ways, it's very easy as we get older to lose sight of this. But it's, I think, incredibly important in this time in the United States to be bold about pushing for change, pushing for community, pushing for what all people need, respect and rights at this time. And this painting is in Texas now. Doug and Claire can see this often, but I'm curious how Skylar feels about this painting as well. This is also something if you can, you might want to zoom in on it. The turtle is in the center, and the face is Mother Nature. This was done as part of a series on quantum biology, that the more we understand about subatomic biology, the more we realize that we are part of all of nature, and we interact very closely with all of nature, particularly things like enzymes in our own bodies, bacteria in our own bodies, molecules and small particles. And while there's no sure thing with nature, we can work to nurture the probabilities that will be in partnership with nature, and that we can have good outcomes with nature if we nurture those possibilities. So that's nurture the probabilities. This, like so many of the things I've done, you may want to zoom in. This is in part to remember work I did against police violence in Cincinnati, along with Damon Lynch III and Iris Rowley and a whole series of people who worked to change the practices of the Cincinnati Police Department, particularly after Timothy Thomas was killed by Officer Roach in 2001. But it's also about all the ways that our society is unjust. So it's, the buildings are various issues, money laundering, stock buyback services, Prison Industries, Inc., and disinformation news. But the March for Justice goes on even more so now than before. I am moving to do a new series about partnership with nature, that we need to deepen our partnership with nature, not only because of climate change, but also to really be in harmony with nature. So that's what I just started to work on. So I want to take a quick sort of pan around the studio space here, but this is the space that I work in. And those are binders of black and white work that I've done from years and years ago. We open it up. Sam, it's good to see you, but go ahead, Jen.
It's good to see Valda too. Great. It's really great that all of you are here, and I just want to share a little bit about Steve's art and the impact it's had on me and other people. But just a little story here. When we moved to Connecticut 7 years ago, Steve's focus on his art became a way for us to get closer to family members here and to meet new people in New England. His Woodstock art piece, did you mention that earlier? Well, anyway, yeah. He did a piece on Woodstock, and it became a local sensation. And it was a way to bring in some extra cash for a houseless, disabled military veteran named Jeff and a houseless carpenter named John. We met these guys one afternoon while they were playing music on our neighbor's front porch. They were singing Neil Young songs, and we introduced ourselves and asked if we could join in. They noticed Steve's Woodstock sweatshirt and they loved it. So Jeff and John ended up buying and selling dozens of these sweatshirts, buying them from Steve for $20 and then selling them to their military vet friends for $30. They made $10, you know, a piece. So that was a good thing for them. It was great. So what I've noticed and what I really appreciate about Steve's artistic expression is his ability to reflect and interpret the world around him that both evokes and provokes a broad range of emotions. And I love how he captures memories of people and places and the organizing work for social change he's done and we've done together. Art has long served as a potent means of resistance against oppression, offering a voice to the voiceless amid all the chaos and culture of cruelty. Art can also promote our visions for a culture of caring. So, amen.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Mo again. If you have questions or comments that you want to make, we'll have time for some conversation. And one thing, you know, at some point, Carl or Brucey, if you have any reflections about Oberlin, I'd love to hear them too.
And I'd love to hear Valda's, what's happening in Cincinnati with your initiative that's going on now.
Yeah, we can open it up to questions now. And Steve, my question that I have for you is, and I'm curious with all artists is, you know, we do a lot of work, we're engaged in the world, we're creative people. You know, it's not always what we do to feed ourselves and so on. But whether it's music or whether it's drawing or sketching or creative writing, or it could be any kind of outlet, why did you turn to the creative art form as an avenue for expression rather than, you know, some other possible ways of expressing yourself?
Well, nobody in my house can sing worth a darn. And I also happen to be married to a very, very good singer. And so I realized that There was no way I was going to be able to sing very well, even though I do attempt it at times. Um, but the free drawing really was a type of meditation. And it wasn't art when I started. It really was just, letting my mind go. And it's very slowly, really over decades, became something that I wanted to concentrate on. And Doug, I have to tell this story. You and Claire were over at our house, and I did a 5-minute portrait of you that'll be in this show. Um, and it was a real turning point because it felt like I was able to capture your portrait with wax pencil in a very short time. And I really liked what I had there. And so I decided, well, I think maybe I should do this some more. And that was sometime in the early 90s, I think, or maybe mid 90s. So
Wait, you're saying you made a thing of him in the early 90s?
it may have been the mid 90s, but
Oh, did he know you were drawing him?
I remember that now. Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Oh, you do?
Cool.
Well, I'll share. This is Balder Freeman Carmel. I live in Cincinnati, and I met both Jenny and Steve through Ally, where we were focused on the whole green movement. And I really like that really your history with social justice that really spoke to me, and I will figure out how to see it in more detail. I couldn't figure out how to get the Zoom to zoom in while you were presenting, but that piece really spoke to me, and just your work has spoken to me. So once Jenny left Cincinnati, we tried for a couple of years to hold Ally together, and we realized that we had a kind of a come to Jesus heart to heart, and we all, the remaining board members, admitted like, well, we came because of Jenny. let's just say it bluntly. Yeah, green's good, but we liked hanging out with Jenny. So once she left, we didn't really hold it together. But no, no good organization goes to waste. So I recycled it and focused it on social justice, which is what we're doing now. And it is the nonprofit arm of a project called the Aaron Wearable Tech, and Aaron stands for Assisted Abilities Responders On Call Network. But I have special needs children with autism and Down syndrome, and then another one with autism and high anxiety disorder. And my fear of them as a mom is they're out in society and they get approached by the police. Since they're African American, their chances of a good interaction are pretty darn slim since they don't have good communication skills. So this system will, through wearables, alert the police who they are. So basically, don't shoot my baby. You already know they can't communicate. So that whole process. So Ally is working mainly with the police, and that's a challenging thing because, pretty sure everybody knows about what happened with the new KKK hanging their hate speech over the I-75 overpass that goes between Evendale, which is where General Electric is, and Lincoln Heights, which is the oldest Black community in Cincinnati. So luckily nobody got hurt physically, but those wounds of, racism are definitely like open. And so we're working on that. We've got, some legal actions going. We got, political actions going, and spiritual church actions going. Okay, Anson. Sorry, it's my son. So this fight, and especially in the era of Trump, it's unfortunately it's old but new. It's like a restart. And so part of our job is to catch up our children of what's really going on, because we've been a little lackadaisical because we thought we had improved, but we found out in a really sad way that nope, not in America. So
Yeah.
so that's my
Thank you.
speech. And I really appreciate the post you did on LinkedIn. Um, Steve, I'm actually going to respond to that. But
Good.
just,
Thank you.
yeah, just a little background. I've been kind of moving slow because I just had hip replacement. I don't know if I told you too, but I
Oh,
just 3.5 weeks ago. I'm doing really good, but
Wow.
I'm just trying to recover from that.
yeah. Thanks.
Sending you positive vibes, healing vibes, prayers.
Thank you.
And Valda, you may not know, but Mo was director of Ally after me
And before me.
and
Oh,
before.
wow.
He did it for a little while. Yeah. He organized a lot of young folks. Do you want to say anything about that, Mo?
I mean, this was my first time really like learning about learning and learning about education and learning about, the kind of essential role of facilitating, the learning process with people as a critical part of social and political organizing, and and becoming more fully human and understanding our political and social and economic context and so on. And all of that, Steve was like, yo, we're organizing these young adult clubs, dude. And I'm like, I was like, what does that mean? He's like, you just gotta go organize these young adult. I'm like, what does that mean, dude? He's like, you need to learn how to go do. And so Steve would be like, you gotta talk to these people, you gotta, kind of map the assets in South Fairmount is where we were starting, and find the businesses, find the community centers, find the the kind of the natural leaders, the people who are out. He's like, then you got to start talking to young people. You talk to the people who are on the street. I'm like, it's like on the street. He's like, on the street, man. I'm like, well, what do I say? He's like, just start talking to them. And and he made it seem so easy, right? And truly there's something about it that it really is, it's a simple thing, right? But it's not an easy thing. And I think that Steve, your your guidance was really helpful in terms of, you did it really well in terms of allowing me to kind of go and learn how to do this by myself, like out in the community. But then you were always there, could always come back and, see you at the office or see you at your home, or, reach out to you and get guidance about, like, what's the next step? Like, okay, so I'm standing in this business. So now what do I do? We'll talk to him about how he feels about the community and what the community needs. And, and so I did that for about a year with you. And then I tried to continue to do that afterward. And I had an apprentice at the time. Her name was Courtney. And I remember, man, I spent that whole year writing grants, trying to get money, man. It's so hard to do. And this was the first time that I realized that, right, the revolution wouldn't be funded. And I realized also at these moments that, it's only the Unitarian Universalists who are funding us, right? They're the like they're the only people who are, willing to take this risk. And that's when I realized how dangerous it is to ask people to think, right? Because all we were asking people to do is to think about their reality. And it's such a simple thing. I just want to organize young people and bring them together and have them think about their reality and set their own agenda. And I was there to facilitate and help out. And nobody wanted to fund that. And like, but why not? Because it's
Mm.
Yeah.
just so dangerous. It's just so dangerous. And like, why would the people who hold the purses, right, ever fund anything that will directly undermine them rather than allow them to continue doing what they're doing and placate and pacify on the side? So so those are some big moments, those 2 years I spent with you, Steve. Like I said, you're like, that way, point that way, and then you just pushed me. So
Appreciate that, Mo. There.
Thank you. Thank
I have a
While we're
comment.
sending, oh, go ahead, Mac. Go ahead.
You first.
Well, I was just going to send appreciations for, even though I did leave Oberlin before the real stuff hit the fan, growing up and going to youth fellowship with your family, to me, laid the groundwork. I remember that's when I first learned about elections. That's when I first learned about the importance of community organizing. That's when I first learned that, kids my age could express opinions and be respected and recognized for things they said. I remember Taylor Whiteside speaking up against the war, and that was a terrific learning moment because a lot of people weren't that receptive to anti-war in the congregation. But anyway, I enjoyed that part of my Oberlin upbringing tremendously. And what I was going to say, Steve, is I spent the last couple of years. Thank you for the small assists that you provided along the way, and I think Ethan, Carl, I don't think you were involved, but I write for a very small circulation newspaper here in Pennsylvania, where I live, and I've been writing about Native American studies and what we can, not studies, but Native American culture and what we can learn about stewarding Mother Earth from Native people. And I learned so much, and I'm just really excited that you're going to tackle this whole question of our relation to the natural world because it's so important. Yeah. Yeah,
Any
really.
likes it too.
Yeah. Well, what I decided when Trump got elected, I decided that I would write two series. And I unfortunately did them in the wrong order. I wanted to do immigration and civil service. And I started with immigration, and now I'm, regretting it that I didn't do civil service first because it seems like a lot more chaos going on in that area. But anyway, I really look forward to seeing what you do with your next phase because I love your pictures, the paintings and drawings that you do around nature. They just knock me out. I think they're fabulous.
Thank you. And I really want to echo the youth fellowship was really important for me as well.
Yeah.
It really kind of was an area outside of family and school that helped me figure out a lot of things.
Likewise.
Mac, you wanted to say something?
Sure. I'm grateful also to be here and have roots in a faith-based small college and religious traditions that really nurtured me as a young person. Today, and I put a one-page document in the chat. It says New Richmond Schools. And thank you, Valda. It's a description. I just want to say that Ally lives, Steve has been a mentor for me and Jenny a mentor for me. And the current version of that is described in this one page where my wife Laura and I have since moved from New Richmond into Cincinnati to deal with fewer steps and hills, but I'm still involved in trying to help this little public school system, which has two closed fossil fuel plants and which just lost a wheelbarrow full of money in terms of property tax revenues, but has land. And so maybe energy development is a possibility, and that's what's described in the one page attached. Steve has coached me in that, and Jenny, and the always looking for connections. I shamelessly put that up in case anybody has suggestions. The it's really framed in terms for Red State, Ohio, and Red County, Claremont County. You know, there's not, the word environment doesn't appear in there. But nor does municipal socialism, which is essentially what it is. But they have land, they have shared self-interest, and if they thought about it, that's the big, uh, you know, they might want to talk to each other. What a radical concept! And between village and school and water, utility, all of which are nonprofits which own land and, you know, have electric bills that are going up. But they've been siloed institutions. They haven't really talked to each other. And but now we have a crisis which we should not waste, you know. And so that here's what the current version of school green schools is inspiring. So thank you, Jenny and Steve.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Meg.
You want to mention Chuck?
No. go ahead.
Chuck, we don't see you, but we see your name. It's great to see that you're here. You got your.
Yeah,
There
it's
you
nice
are.
to catch up. I just wanted to listen in. I just always like to hear an artist story. And I've always admired his work over the years. Steve's.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to shout out to everybody that Chuck was a major supporter of Ally in our green school work. We used to meet at his office all the time, and he had this like, what was it, platinum?
Well, it's the
lead?
lead platinum office at Washington Park. I had the office there for about 10 years, and I enjoyed helping promote sustainability with you, Jenny. And I'm still volunteering with the Contemporary Arts Center to help them reduce their energy cost. And I'm chair of Earth Day still here in Greater Cincinnati.
Nice. That's great. Yep. And did you know you remember Valda, right? Did you know she's on the call?
Yeah, I could see her avatar. That's cool.
Oh, that's great.
I'll have to get one of those. It's a much younger persona.
Yeah, I like that.
So is there anybody else who would like to chime in, either a comment or a question?
Yeah, I'll go. So yeah, I love looking at your work, Steve, some of which we've already seen, some of which we haven't. And the nurture the probabilities, I love the wording on that because, you know, I always think the possibilities, but probabilities makes it more approachable. And the free drawing that you did with the eights made me think of yesterday. I took this standardized test that I don't know the results of yet. But the way they do it now, you know, you go into this testing center and you have to, it's to continue my certification as a special ed teacher. And the way you do it now is you have to go in person and locked into this room without your cell phones. And he said, yeah, I asked if I could have some paper to like doodle on or to write things on, you know, because it's a computer, it's on the computer. And he was like, well, we don't do paper anymore. And he pulls out like this scratch pad. And he's like, the thing is that you're not allowed to doodle on it. You can only write on it. That was one thing. And the other thing was you're not allowed to erase. And
Wow.
I about it and I'm like, that sounds like I might have problems not doing either one, you know, maybe not doodling because I'm not a big doodler, but just I like to like, okay, I'm done with that, erase, you know. And he said, well, you know, if you want, we're not really strict about it. The problem is when you erase things, you like look around and you're not allowed to look at anybody when you're taking this test. So long story shorter, I didn't take it at first, but then there were some questions that I needed to write some things down. They were like math related. and I'm raising my hand, wait for him to come into the room, and then he gives me the pad, and I write my things on it, and I don't erase it. But it's just the stifling, I guess, all around of that expression that is, I'm glad you were able to, what's the word, to grow that.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to mention we had a meeting a few weeks ago, and Mac, you mentioned horizontal communication. And that's part of what we're doing here. So much of computer technology is oriented towards vertical communication, that we're responding to some meme or outside source, something from Google or X or whoever. But we want to really emphasize people getting together and talking with each other about what we want to do, what we can do. And Mo, I really like what you said about young people, young adults, just figuring out what they think about their community. Because that's, I think, where it starts.
Yeah. And there's a little bit more, like when you're talking about talking to people, we're taking care, like right now, my job doesn't really allow me to do a lot of talking to people besides the people I work with and live with. But well, I don't know. That's not totally true. But anyway, I do what I can, or we do what we can in our other ways. Like our friend Hatham is in Jordan right now, the country of Jordan, and he is quite an activist. And every 2 times a week, he has coordinated this thing since October 7th. They go out. I've been a couple times to the bridges and hang the signs that say stop the genocide, blah blah blah. And we're taking care of his dogs while he's visiting his 89-year-old dad in Jordan. They moved from Palestine, and he's getting he has Alzheimer's now. And anyway, I just feel like I'm doing my part in these different ways. By taking care of the dogs that you've seen on camera. Well, and supporting him so that he can, I mean, his dogs are his babies, I mean, he's like every day, he's like, how are the dogs doing? And da 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 da. And there was one more thing, something about the KKK. I didn't even know about that. I'm gonna have to look that up. That's, oh man. Yes, the card. Oh, I know. Like I don't know about the immigrant community, but we have a lot of immigrant families at my school that I work at. And in Austin and throughout the country, I know people are passing out cards, and I'm involved in an organization called Austin Sanctuary Network. And the cards are in Spanish and English. And on one side, it tells them that they don't have to speak to the police when ICE comes knocking on their door. And it says it in Spanish and it says it in English. So something that I think Valda mentioned reminded me of something about passing out cards or something. Oh, I know, Valda, like for the communication thing for your kids and for other people. It's the same idea. It's like, letting the authorities know, this is where things stand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah.
Yep. Anybody else? I want to just say, this retrospective show will be up in Willimantic, Connecticut. And I know that's a fur piece for most of y'all. But it'll be up in April and May. It'll be 50 pieces that cover from 1968 until last year. But 50 is, well, it's not nearly enough, but that's all the space that I've got for this show.
I do want to say one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, based on what you said, Claire, and just knowing a lot of you and that and thinking about resisting oppression and how we can resist in so many different ways, and we need people resisting in many different ways. There's no one way to do it. But, art is a great thing. Taking care of children is a great thing. And dogs, taking care of dogs. And, just there's all kinds of ways to build community, to support pushing back, the oligarchy. So anyway, just wanted to say that. Oh, somebody did some hearts. Who did that? Was that you, Mo? Sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that. Cool.
It's about 5. We said we'd end at 5. I do really appreciate all of you coming to be part of this. And Mo, thank you for facilitating this this gathering.
Here's some more display space.
Oh, Mac.
Yeah, Mac's holding up a piece of art that he got from me a couple years ago.
Acorns and onions.
Peeling back the layers, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's an educational piece that it's about, all of us have layers, and sometimes it's helpful to peel back the layers to see, what's underneath all of it, try and understand ourselves better. So again, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it.
Did Doug want to say something?
Yeah, that piece that Mac is showing, this brings to mind that what you're doing is very metaphorical, very symbolic, has a lot of analogy, maybe even satire. And that's what Claire and I try to do in our poetry.
Sweet.
Thanks.
That's great.
Yeah. Any last goodbyes? Thank you all again for being here.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Hope to see you again soon.
Take care.
Let's do it
Okay.
again.
Mhm.